Hey everybody, welcome to Witchcraft Fundamentals, Lesson 13, Next Steps. So if you've made it this far, I'm assuming you've watched all of the videos in this series, from the introduction all the way through Main Magic. Um, if you have, fantastic. If you haven't, go back, watch the ones you skipped. They're all important. Um, now what? You've got a basic grounding in the fundamentals, and that is fantastic. It's where everyone has to start if they want to move forward and actually become a practitioner. So, what do you do now? Well, number one, practice. Now that you've learned the basics, you have to actually apply them. Practice. Do all the things. Do spells. Do rituals. Go out. Practice. Learn how to use the abilities. Learn discernment. Figure out what works for you, what doesn't. Begin to develop into the practitioner you want to be. So, do your daily practice. If you can't do daily practice, because it's hard to do daily practice, try it for a week, 2 weeks, every other week. Maybe go on a retreat where you just do intensive practice for a couple of days, if you can. But at the very least, try to do a daily practice where you ground, center, cleanse, shield. Very, very simple, basic stuff. Just get practicing. Try doing something like a daily divination. Whenever I get a new tarot deck, I like to do it, for a couple of months. I'll take a card a day to both have divination for the day and to get used to the deck. That kind of stuff can really help you build your confidence, help you to understand, how to use your discernment to figure out what's going on, how to feel when something is a pull from outside or whether it's something from inside. Get to know the difference between an advanced daydream and talking to spirits. Practice is the only way to do that. Try making offerings to your metaphysical allies or allies you hope to have. If you don't have allies or you're just not interested in metaphysical allies, try just making offerings of gratitude for things that have worked out. Very, very simple things. Get in the habit of doing magical things. Practice. Try doing, either daily or maybe weekly spell work of some kind. Little things like, may I be lucky today? May my health continue? Very simple things. You don't have to have huge, magical, revelatory, paradigm shifting workings. It can be, gosh, I hope my bus is on time today. Help me to get to work on time. Help my immune system to be strong. Going into cold and flu seasons in 2021. Health is very important. Little things. Things like, may my household be happy and harmonious. Little things that are always nice to have. Do these spells on the regular. Get used to them. You'll start to develop a feel for how it's supposed to go. And then if something were to happen, if the energies around you shift, if you need to maybe do something a little stronger, do something a little different, well, if you've been practicing, you'll know you need to do that. And you can then do it. And you're going to get better results. Practice makes perfect. And the fact is, well, practice is the only way to get good at any of this. And you will never be perfect. There is always more to learn. And the only way to learn it is to actually do it. That being said, the other thing, do the reading. You've watched all these videos, and that's awesome. Hopefully you've done some of the homework. You've been doing your practices. Now, if you want to dive deeper, you need to do the homework. You need to do the readings. Knowledge is power, literally, when it comes to magic. You have to know in order to do. Some people work very, very much on instinct. They have fantastic results, and that is awesome for them. But even if you're super intuitive and everything you do is by instinct, Learning the fundamentals, learning the history, learning how practices have developed will still help you to improve and refine your practices. I learn so much from reading what other people do. It's not for me, it wouldn't really work for me the way other people tend to do their magic, but I can get inspired. I can learn from their mistakes. I can open my point of view to other ways of doing things that just wouldn't have occurred to me. I can try them. I can see, hey, this thing I've heard about, might it work for me? Only one way to find out. Figure out how to do it, give it a try, see what happens. You know, read the stories of other people's failures, the things that didn't work for them and how they figured out it wasn't working. You know, do the reading. Read the history. Things like Triumph of the Moon, Ronald Hutton. It's the whole development of the neo-pagan movement. Something like Children of Cain, learn about British traditional witchcraft. You know, there's all kinds of books of history out there. Even, you know, your Malleus Maleficarum kind of nonsense from back in the day. Learning how people viewed magical practitioners, learning where the stereotypes developed, learning how things became the way they are today will help you to see how to navigate the world you live in. History is important. If anything, the last few years should have taught you by now is know your history or you will be doomed to repeat it. In the pagan movement, in the magical circles, learn your history. Somebody has tried almost everything, you know, and everything we do now is, for the most part, a variation or adaptation of things that have been done in the past. So learn how people did it in the past and why they chose the way they did it. Because you'll be able to then see, oh, they did this because it was a weird political thing they were reacting to, and that's not really a magical reason. So I don't really need to worry about that because my politics don't look like that. We hope. You know, learn the different ways of doing things. Try them. Read mythology from cultures around the world. So much kind of ancestral wisdom is passed down in story form. You know, mythology is how certain, you know, ethics, morals, you know, communications with nature were passed down is via mythology. So the only way to really start digging into that is to know your myths, know how they develop, know why, you know, see what happened to indigenous cultures when the colonialists came and how their mythologies changed. Because even though mythology is about the past and it's about fantastical ways of explaining things, there's truth in a lot of it. And if you're a polytheist, you know, there's real truth, capital T truth in a lot of that. But also keep in mind that mythology serves a purpose. And a lot of modern media today is just our version of mythology. And we get to use that magically in things like pop culture magic, which will be probably a workshop later. There's a lot to talk about there. But read the mythology. Get to know who these gods and spirits and figures of cultures are and what they represent, because those are metaphysical entities that you can work with. Read our contemporary works on magical practices. Learn other people's techniques, things like Laura Tempest-Sarkov's Sigil Witchery, which is an amazing, amazing book of a really, you know, seems like a common sense approach to using sigils in magic, and yet she puts it better than anyone I've read talking about these kinds of things. Learn what other people do, why they do it, how they do it. Don't think that you're beholden to the books, however. Reading other people's techniques and ways of doing things is inspiration for you to figure out what your practice is going to look like. It's not hard and fast, you must do exactly these things. You know, it's a little bit like cooking, where, you know, the first time you make a recipe, you follow the instructions because you don't really know what's going to happen. You don't necessarily know how things work. You make it a couple of times, and then you can start your variations. And you can make it something that is to your taste. That's what the name of the game is when it comes to magic. You do things, you see how they work for you, you modify them until they work the way you need them to work. If you're an eclectic, if you're a traditionalist, it's a whole different thing, but I'm not a traditionalist, so those are not the instructions I'm going to give you. If you are part of a tradition, they probably have certain things that you must do exactly the way they tell you. That's part and parcel of being in someone else's tradition. The choice is yours. Uh, and of course, read about traditions. Talk to people. Go to their websites. See what the different paths are doing. Do some of them call to you? So you might find a path, a tradition that is already out there that is exactly what you need it to be. It might be the best people doing the best things, and it works exactly the way you need it to. And that's amazing and wonderful, and I'm so happy for you. That was never the case for me. I've tried so many traditions, but I have learned something important from all of them, even though I don't necessarily subscribe to any one tradition. I'm an eclectic. It's just how I work. But if you don't know, how do you know there's not something amazing out there? Like, I didn't discover kind of the ins and outs of curanderismo until the last couple of years. And in reading it, it's like, oh, I do all of these things. Ah, there's a name for that. Fantastic. Um, if you never look, you'll never find. You know, the magical world is full of synchronicities and coincidences that, you know, you might stumble across things might fall into your lap, you might literally bump into someone who has some key piece of knowledge for you or an experience to offer you, and that's amazing. Um, but rather than waiting around for the universe to decide that you need to be smacked in the face with something, look for information, explore. Um, as with all things, when you're doing the reading, remember the author who wrote whatever it is you're reading has thoughts, opinions, and an agenda. Everyone has thoughts, opinion, and an agenda. The trick is not to, you must throw out all books because they all have an agenda. No. You just need to learn discernment. This person is writing from this point of view and they're trying to get these points across. I will keep that in mind when I read their opinions of things. You know, if you are reading a book that was written in the 1920s in, you know, New England, well, that's a very particular time. It's a very particular social situation. Chances are you're reading a white male, because if it was published in New England in the 1920s, and that's who got published, um, you know, they're living in a very specific type of society with certain mores and values and ethics, and that might be very different from the reality you live in today. Um, the magical world, particularly in the United States and Western Europe, is overwhelmingly white. Um, Currently, the authors skew towards female for a lot of topics, except like ceremonial magic and hard sorcery. That tends to still skew white male. Um, Publishers are getting better about representation and specifically seeking out POC authors, authors that are of various places in the gender spectrum, the sexuality spectrum. But a lot of the older books are incredibly heteronormative, kind of racist. Um, you know, you don't necessarily have to throw the baby out with the bathwater with problematic authors, but be aware that they are potentially problematic, you know. Um, so many of them, so many of them. Um, know your history so that you can have the discernment. Um, but, you know, do read, do your research, go seek knowledge, experience things, and grow as a result. And then become part of the larger community of practitioners. There's a lot of us out there on the internet in your local town or city. You know, depending on where you live, your environment may or may not be a safe and friendly place to be a magical practitioner. There's still a lot of places in the world where it's not socially acceptable. Very few places where it's still illegal, but you can run into some issues still. Unfortunately, there's a lot of prejudice out there. So be mindful if you're out and about, letting your freak flag fly. I encourage you to do so if it is safe and comfortable for you to do so. If not, evaluate your situation, make your own choices. But go visit your local shops. Particularly now, your local shops need your patronage. And think about local shops that specialize in the spooky. The people that own them and work there tend to know their shit. And if they don't know the answer to a question you might have, they probably know exactly who in the community you should ask. They've probably got their name on a wall somewhere with a business card or an index card or whatever. You know, hang out, get tarot readings, learn the people in the community, be a part of the community, attend public rituals. A note on public rituals. There's a million groups out there doing a million different types of public rituals. Don't assume if you've been to one ritual that you necessarily know what a different group's rituals are going to look like. Always, always, always read the full description of the event. Know if you need to have any caveats, if you need to bring anything, if there's certain behaviors expected or forbidden. You know, a lot of public rituals, it's you can be outside the circle and watch, or you can be inside the circle and participate. But once you're in the circle, you can't leave until it's over. Sometimes there's going to be a warden that might let you leave early, but if you're new to a group, check these types of things. And then there's big public events, things like Witches' Night Out, Pagan Pride Day. There's all kinds of festivals. A lot of them have changed, and public events are fraught with peril in COVID times. So I don't know what those are going to look like in your area whenever it is you're watching this video. But things like meetup groups, Facebook groups, like once again, go to your local shops. They will know what's happening in your area. They will probably promote it. They might host it. But go. Be a part of the community. Participate. If you want the community to exist, you must participate in it. If you just look at things online and say, oh, I'm so glad that these gatherings occur, and you never go to them, chances are those gatherings are going to start to disappear. Participate. Now, when you do participate, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Be honest. If you're new and you don't know what you're doing, do not pretend that you know what you're doing. That is how you get yourself in trouble. People that do know what they're doing will know. And they will judge you. Be open, be honest, act in good faith. If you are there because you're curious, say, I'm here because I'm curious. I want to see what y'all do. Don't commit to then joining the group and volunteering and doing all the things if you have not yet actually participated with the group. Trust but verify. Not all groups are what they are cracked up to be, and everybody puts their best foot forward with new people at their first event. Go to a couple before you commit yourself to anything other than showing up. It is very, very easy if you're enthusiastic and you really want to be part of the group and be, validated and all of that kind of thing, to volunteer for all the things, do all kinds of work, free labor. That's how you get yourself taken advantage of. Please be careful. So, yeah, trust but verify. There's a lot of people out there that, just like everybody else, we all want to be liked. We all want to feel validated. We all want to be respected. And sometimes in pagan and occult community, you'll find the people that just want to be the grand high poobah. They want people to go, ooh, spooky, spooky. That person's so special. I call it the wand measuring contests. They happen a lot. Just because someone says something doesn't mean they're going to follow through, or that they actually have the credentials they claim, or if they have the abilities or practices that they say they do. Look at people's actions. Look at what people are actually doing, not just what they're saying. Trust. Be open-minded. Most people are acting in good faith, but some of them are also problematic. People are still growing. A lot of people in pagan and occult circles are people that were othered in mainstream circles in traditional religious areas, that kind of thing. And so we tend to be the outcasts and the weirdos, and we find our tribe and we cling to them because we like them. It's our kind of weird. But that means that there's sometimes some posturing, some overstating of experiences so you sound cool. So trust, but verify. These people are probably not acting maliciously if they are boasting. But, before you, commit to something, make sure that you know what you're committing yourself to. And, same way you don't get in a car with a stranger you've only met once for 5 minutes. Don't commit to meeting in the park at midnight if you don't know the people that are going to be there. Or have backup. Bring a friend. Yeah. I have no problem in my area going to events with new groups because I know most of the groups and most of the people know me, so it's not... I am the litmus test a lot of the time, so I don't care. But if it's someplace out of the way, I will bring a friend, because I don't want to be trapped somewhere out in the hinterlands without backup. Healthy paranoia is healthy. That's just me. You do you. The other thing, particularly with certain groups, sad to say, beware of cults. There are a lot of accidental mini cults out there in pagan and occult circles, and it's really usually cults of personality. You've got one strong Grand High Poobah-esque leader, and people fawn over them, and their secret knowledge. If someone is asking you for money, sex, or obedience, question their motives. Common sense here, people. Don't check your common sense at the door just because someone is magical. Because they might not be. Don't allow yourself to be taken advantage of. If you are ever in a situation where you feel uncomfortable, leave. If you go to some ritual and they're like, you cannot leave, you must do everything exactly the way we tell you or you will be cursed forever. No. Anyone that needs to assert that much authority has none. And you cannot be bound by someone else's promise in that way. Until you've, committed to something, you get to leave. And even if you've committed to something, if you feel like you are in danger, you still get to leave. Obviously, with that is the caveat of, if you think you're not going to be able to handle something, don't agree to do it. It's a very fine line between agreeing to take part in a risky bit of magical business and not being able to live up to your promises and being lied to and trapped in a situation that is dangerous to you. I don't know what your situations are like, but people have motives and agendas and are sometimes dishonest. So make sure you know what you're getting into. I have been very fortunate that I have never actually encountered a true bad faith, entrapment kind of situation, but I have heard of them from people that I do have faith in. And I have definitely been in situations where there is an implied power transfer. There is sometimes an expectation of a certain veneration of the high priest or priestess. And I don't roll like that. Um, but for the most part, most people are good. Most of us are just trying to find community, find our people, have a good time, practice with other people that don't think we're crazy. Um, most of the community is great. And this is why go to your local shops. Find out who the good groups are. Are there folks you need to keep an eye out for? Because unfortunately, they do exist, unfortunately. Um, yeah, the Me Too movement has taught us a lot. Um, also, be you're much, much more likely, and this is something I have encountered on numerous occasions, um, the kind of, here is your free workshop. But if you want to know the real secrets, you must do our 6-month, $3,000 super secret special course. In the pagan and magical occult worlds, there is a lot of secret knowledge. And people have worked very hard to obtain and maintain said knowledge. And they're allowed to keep that secret for themselves and for initiates. They are. But there is a line. If someone is charging you hundreds of dollars and that next great secret is just in the next course, just one more, honey, you're being lied to. The super secret knowledge is not your princess is in another castle. The super secret knowledge is they haven't written it yet, and so they need you to buy the next course so that they can write the one after that while you're in the next one. Yeah. Trust, but verify. Make sure that most of that kind of, super secret knowledge is fine. Traditions are allowed to have closed traditions. They're allowed to have closed knowledge because it's their practices. It's the same way you can't necessarily get your Aunt Bertha to give you her amazing apple pie recipe until her deathbed. It's hers. She's allowed to not tell you. Particularly if you're looking at closed traditions that are indigenous or mainly minority or diaspora traditions, a lot of those are closed. You've got to be initiated. You have to make certain promises and oaths and be sworn to secrecy before you learn a bunch of stuff. And it's because that knowledge has been used against those people a lot. A lot of the kind of secrecy traditions you see in magical and occult circles comes from the time where you could be legally murdered for engaging in these rituals. Or have your kids taken away, or be called satanic, and thanks 1980s. There's a lot of reasons that secrecy has become an integral part of magical practices. Just look at the hoops you're being asked to jump through. Are they valid, or are they just trying to get something from you? Use your discernment, use your good judgment. If you're learning things, if it's making your life better, if you're in a healthy place, if each hoop gives you a reward, then keep going. If not, if all you're doing is jumping through hoops and spending money and spending energy and giving up pieces of yourself, what are you doing? Do not let the sunk cost fallacy ruin your life. If your life is not being made better, chances are you can spend your time elsewhere. It kind of is that simple. Growth is hard. I'm not saying the growth should always be easy and fun. Growth is hard. You need to be doing work, but you do need to be seeing some kind of payoff for that work. Otherwise, are you being taken advantage of? When in doubt, ask a friend you trust who is not a part of the system you're trying to evaluate. Do some divination. Go to a shop with someone who's never met you before and say, you don't have to give a lot of specifics. Hey, I'm engaging in this thing. Is it actually a good idea for me to continue with it, or should I cut my losses? Get an outside opinion, whatever that needs to look like for you. But yeah, unfortunately, most people are good. Some people are bad. The bad apples do tend to spoil the bushel. So, trust, but verify. You are in charge of your own safety. So, in summation, at this point, what you need to do is practice, do your reading, get out in the community. Those are your 3 next steps for your journey. Beyond that, you have my email. It's down in the description. If you have any questions, you are absolutely welcome to email me. If you have topics you'd like to see me cover in the future, by all means, send in those suggestions. I'm delighted. I'm not sure if I'm going to do another series quite like this one. I might just do individual topics and workshops and things. But I hope you have enjoyed these videos and have gotten something out of them. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I'm around. And yeah, go out and do magic. Bye.